The CEOs of Twitter, Google, Facebook are all expected to testify before the Senate Commerce Committee next week as several Republican lawmakers express concerns over suppression and censorship. My next guest co-sponsored the Online Freedom and Viewpoint Diversity Act. It would modify a law that shields those companies from liability. The senator joins us now, Senator Roger Wicker, chairman of the Senate Commerce Committee. Senator, good morning to you. Welcome. Thank you for being here. So first up, what is your concern when it comes to these big tech companies and what Americans see when they use those social media giants?
Well, listen, these are among the most powerful people in the country. The CEOs of Google, Facebook, and Twitter have enormous power over the free flow of information in our country. And it is a real concern, not only to me. I'm sponsoring this bill, but Senator Graham, chairman of the Judiciary Committee, and other members of the Commerce Committee and Judiciary Committee are sponsoring this bill. Under current law, they get a free pass and liability protection under what we call Section 230 of the Communications Decency Act. And if they're going to show a bias against a conservative point of view, which we see time and time again, I think it's time to re-examine whether they should have this Section 230 exemption from liability. Our bill would tighten up this language, and basically the law as it is today gives them a right to censor anything they find objectionable. Now, objectionable is in the eye of the beholder, so we're going to tighten that up. We think they need protection if they take down content that advocates violence or self-harm or terrorism. That's okay, but we're not going to, in my view, I don't think we should leave it up to big tech to decide what is objectionable and what isn't. Okay,
these companies are behemoth, as you well know, Senator.
No question.
Where do you expect to get with companies that have, they're worth billions? In the case of Google, $1 trillion company. Do you expect that you can actually hold them accountable if it indeed is the case that they are censoring what the American people see when they use these companies?
Well, let me say this. I'm outraged, for example, by what Twitter did to the New York Post story about Hunter Biden. I mean, that is a story that needed to be out there. The public needs to examine it, and Americans can decide for themselves. But the concern about big tech is bipartisan. We issued this set of subpoenas on October 1st, and frankly, in the Commerce Committee, it was done on a unanimous bipartisan basis. Democrats have other concerns about big tech, dealing with privacy and things like that. But we expanded the scope of the hearing, and I think you'll hear objections from our side based on the clear anti-conservative bias that big tech has, particularly these three companies. But you'll hear other concerns, and frankly, I think there may be some bipartisan solutions to the power that these companies have.
I've got about a minute left, but you're talking about Mark Zuckerberg, the head of Facebook, Jack Dorsey of Twitter. When you've got those executives sitting down in front of you, what's the first question you ask them, Senator?
Well, I'll tell you what, I don't think I'm going to telegraph that, but you can be sure that Mr. Dorsey will be asked about the clear bias in Twitter, not only not letting people retweet this New York Post story about potential corruption in a nominee for president of the United States, and not only shutting that down, but shutting down platforms that chose to retweet that. So I think Mr. Dorsey can look for example after example after example of anti-conservative, anti-Republican bias, and I think he needs to explain that. The other two CEOs also.
Senator, I've got to leave it there. Thank you. We'll watch for that.
Well, thank you very much for having me.
All right.
Appreciate it.